This is just a few words on the scientist Donald Hoffman, uh, the professor in Irvine, California. The scientist Donald Hoffman. I've been aware of him for a couple of years, and he's completely in my alley, at the place where I am too. And I would just like to say a few words that I think is very important, because this is, as I see it, the absolutely crux or the nexus or the focus of what science should be in the next 40, 50 years. He has a talk with Lex Fridman. Lex Fridman, he has a podcast. And in one of the podcasts, there are quite many, he comes with the phrase or the sentence, the addiction to the interface. And this sentence says it all. The addiction to the interface. This sentence says it all, and this is exactly what I've been working on for 10 to 15 to 20 years, which means the human program. Why are we addicted to the interface? I mean, that's the human program. The human program is the interface, and the human program is the reason why we're addicted to it, but we cannot, no one has been able to say why we're addicted to the interface. The interface is, of course, the world as we see it, or the way that the human program produces the world. The interface is that which we see, the interface is that which we experience. The interface is that which is produced. The interface is that which is produced. The interface is the way that the human program produces the world, the way that the human brain and the human nervous system produces the world. That is the interface, which means our experience, our perception and our experience. Because as Professor Donald Hoffman says, reality is an illusion. And he has written the book called The Case Against Reality. The Case Against Reality, which of course should have been published 20, 30 years ago. Because this is, of course, and it's also interesting to note that he opens himself up more to spiritual texts, he mentions, which is very good, because all of this is, of course, has deep roots in the Buddhist tradition, in old Buddhist philosophy, and of course in Advaita Vedanta Hindu philosophy. That I mean, the concept of Maya, of course, is obvious, that what we see is not the real thing. We see the illusion, and only the self is real, or only the quantum field is real, or whatever. There are many parallels. So I just wanted to say this, highlight this sentence, the addiction to the interface. The addiction to the interface that we all have. I made a video about the addiction to consciousness, which is the same thing. The addiction to consciousness, it's the same thing. The addiction to the interface, it's the same thing. Why do we have it, and of what is this addiction constituted? Well, of course, elements, electromagnetic and chemical elements in the human program, in the neurocircuitry of the brain, of course. But exactly how is a matter for science from today and into the future. So the first thing that I want to highlight is simply this sentence, the addiction to the interface, because this is the future of science. It's the future of art. It is what art, philosophy and science is ultimately about. The addiction to the interface. Why do we see the world as we see it, even if we know that it is a production, even if we know that the observation is a creation? We know that the observation is a creation, and the creation that the observation is created by the human program, by the human brain and the nervous system. It's created by the human program, and it becomes the interface. So we know this, and this is my point in this field. So I want to highlight this sentence, the addiction to the interface. That's what the future in science is about. Because, of course, the only interesting field in neuroscience for the general population is neuroscience, the science of brain activity, the science of why the brain is and works in the way that it does. So this is the sentence for the future. This is the sentence for the future. The addiction to the interface. Why is it there? How is it constituted? Why does it come about? And so forth. It's just a feature of the human program. It's the way that the human program works. The second thing that I want to highlight is the thing that I've been saying for at least 15 years, I think, that Einstein was wrong. Einstein was wrong, and especially about the concept of space-time. And Donald Hoffman says that space-time is doomed. I mean, the concept of space-time is doomed. It is a house of cards that's going to collapse. It's not true. It's false. And Einstein was wrong about it. As I've said in a previous video, he was right about the concept of space-time from the point of perception, from the point of perceiving, from the point of observation. The concept of space-time is true when it comes to the interface. Space-time is just is a part of the interface. Space-time is a feature of that which the interface has produced. Space-time is a feature of the way that we conceptualize space. Space-time is one of the ways that we conceptualize space and time in space, and the organization of things in space. But anyway, space-time is doomed. So we're all coming back to Advaita Vedanta philosophy in a way. We're all coming back to the fact that we are something that exists inside the matrix, and the matrix is, of course, the interface. The matrix and the interface is that which the human program produces. And so these two things are the key takeaways from science of today. And into these two things are the two main portals for the future of science as I see it in the next 10, 20, 30 years until 2050. Now it's 2022. So the addiction to the interface, which means everything about the interface itself and about how the human program or the mind or the brain or the nervous system is addicted to the interface that the human program itself is producing. That's one portal, one main portal, the main portal of neuroscience, you could say. And then space-time is doomed. We have to see space, or we have to be open for other paradigms. We have to be open for other ways of seeing space. And I have produced and presented my version of space. My version of space is that it simply doesn't exist, and that's why it is eternal. That's why it is endless. That's why it is without any boundary, and that's why it simply doesn't exist, and that's why it exists. Space exists as space simply because it is nothingness. It doesn't exist. If space had some substance to it, which means some existence to it, then we would be in big trouble, because then matter or particles or quarks could not fit into space. Space has to be nothingness. Space has to be the complete, utter, synthetic nothingness. It must be 100,000% nothingness. It must be 100,000% void. That's what space has to be in order for this universe to work with gravity. Matter and gravity can only work in a way, in a space that is nothingness. You know, the only thing that takes place in space is matter, or the phenomena that we experience in life. But anyway, I've made a quite detailed video about this, but anyway, that's one of the ways that we have to be open to see or perceive or conceptualize space, that space exists as space simply because space doesn't exist as anything else than pure nothingness. It doesn't exist. Space has never been created. So the Big Bang is just something that took place in space. There is no border to space. If I say that this box here constitutes, or this area constitutes, the space of the complete universe and all of the universes, well, what's outside that border? Of course, it's the same space as it is inside the border. The nothingness that is inside is the same thing as the nothingness that is outside. So space is endless and without any boundary, simply because it is that which has never been created. It is nothingness. It's just that scientists and other people cannot conceive of something that is nothing. They cannot understand that. But it's very easy to understand that if you know meditation, if you know introspection, if you know insight meditation or insight introspection. I mean, true reflection, true contemplation. It's not difficult to understand this. But science has been very, 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 very slow on this thing, because it hates the concept of nothingness. You know, it cannot it cannot accept that space simply doesn't exist, and that's why it exists as space. It's difficult for scientists to accept this. But anyway, it's the way that it is. But that's my version of it. We don't have to focus on that or think about that in this video. The thing that we should think about in this video is that there are two portals for science in the future. The first, the addiction to the interface, the way that we are addicted to the consciousness that produce the results of that which the human program produces, which means the way that the world is presented to us. Because, of course, we see reality as we see it, but reality is not in the way that we see. So that which we call reality is a manifestation that is produced by the human program, and that manifestation we could call the interface or the matrix. So that's how it is. This is simply one of the main portal of future in science and in art and in philosophy and in research in general. It's the main portal for intellectual research, scientific, philosophical, or even artistic research in the future. The second thing is, as I've said, that space-time is doomed. So this is the future. The addiction to the interface. What is the interface? Why are we addicted to it? And space-time is doomed. These are the two main portals of future intellectual endeavor. These are the two main portals for thinking, for us who are thinking and doing research on reality and on ourselves, on truth and on nature in the next 20, 30 years. Thank you and amen.